Good morning. Oh, this is light is terrible. Good morning. I wanted to show this. It's a heart. I'm coming live today because I want to talk about 3 points. This live is about DOC being held accountable for the tomfoolery that's going on uh, in our state. I want to talk about the manipulated risk scores, the SRT scores that have been manipulated, that DOC has already admitted uh, they made an error in manipulating the risk scores to be lower for parolees, um, and then the parolees going on to commit murders. I want to talk about the parole supervision that is now ended in murder. And I want to talk about DOC's silence pattern. It's not a fluke, it's systemic, and it needs to stop now. Um, my name is Caprice Bird. Quincy Bird, my daughter, was murdered, fatally beaten about the head and the face with a pole, and then suffocated in Denver, in her home in Denver, uh, by Jasmine Taylor. Uh, the SRT risk score was high in September of 2024, but there was no parole contact for 8 months. Jasmine Taylor was paroled out of DOC in December of 2023. Uh, Her SRT score was high, but parole officers had no contact with Jasmine from January of 2024 until September of 2024 when my Quincy was murdered. Uh, the source is coming from me, but it's been publicized on Channel 9 News. Jessee Schaefer. Jessee Schaefer just died down the street this year, June 2025. Jessee was fatally stabbed in Aurora by a parolee, Ricky Royboy Smith. Uh, Ricky Royboy Smith's parole SRT score was downgraded from very high to moderate before his release. Ricky also went on to murder Scott Davenport. He was also murdered in Aurora, right down the street on Colfax and Peoria. He was fatally stabbed, Scott Davenport, by Ricky, as was Jessee Schaefer. Same flawed SRT assessment. Uh, and then Ricky was taken to jail, placed in a jail cell with Vincent Cajon, who was then murdered just prior to his release because he was placed in the same cell with Ricky Smith, who had just committed 2 fatal stabbings. Vincent Cajon was strangled in Denver jail by Ricky Smith, who he was set in the same cell. The jail placed the parolee with a violent history. That was covered by Channel 7 News. Fidel Sanchez Banulas, and I apologize if I'm butchering these names. Um, Fidel was stabbed on an RTD bus by a parolee. The parolee was on parole, and he had just met with his parole officers just hours before. But again, this was the breaking story on Fox 31 News, where DOC then admitted that they had erroneously scored Vincenzo's parolee scorecard, and he stabbed Fidel on the bus, got off the bus, and Judy Cochran was minding her own business, taking a walk in the morning, and she was stabbed near Regis University in Denver by Vincenzo. That was covered by Channel 9 News. What am I saying to you people? Quincy Byrd, Jessee Schaefer, Scott Davenport, Vincent Cajon, Fidel Sanchez, Julie Cochran. How many more mothers need to suffer DOC? You have scored the parolees in error. It's been publicized all over the news. Yet you remain silent when grieving mothers ask about what do you intend to do. And where I'm at personally, I don't know about the other mothers, but where I'm at personally is it's too little and too late. I need answers. DOC's own documents show that parolees with violent histories are being reclassified as moderate or low risk just before they're being released. Jessee Schaefer and Scott Davenport were murdered by someone whose SRT score was quietly downgraded. That's not a clerical error. That's a system choosing optics over truth. 9 News has already reported on Roble Smith's case. The risk scores were used to justify release, not to protect the public. So out here in the public, we've got parolees walking around, and I'm not saying that everyone doesn't deserve a second chance. What I'm saying is, if you, DOC, are going to parole these people, you need to step up your accountability. If they had mental health illnesses in 2017, they still have mental illnesses in 2024. If they could not keep a job due to drug use and substance use and alcohol use, those things do not change. If they could not stay in school due to these things, those things don't change. And so you can't arbitrarily say yes to an answer years ago and then say no to the answer in order to release them. What I'm talking about is parole supervision that ends in murder. You're not supervising the parolees. You're not even scoring them right. And now there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I'm sure there are more. There are more. Your silence pattern is not a fluke. When Vincent Cajon was strangled in the Denver jail, DOC said nothing. In fact, Vincent Cajon's family believed that he was going to be getting out, and then hours later, they were notified that he was deceased. You tried to cover that up. You tried to act like nothing happened, like you were not responsible. When Quincy Byrd was murdered, they've said nothing. Today is September the 12th. Mike Quincy was murdered September of 2024, and you've said nothing. This isn't oversight. It's institutional silence. So now I want to tie together the pattern of non-response. A mother who I talked to told me that she's been told several times, and I've been told the same thing. We don't sue the government. We don't sue the government. Here's the thing. We wouldn't have this problem if our children were still living. It was yet to be determined what Jesse's life could have looked like. It was yet to be determined what Quincy's life could have looked like. It was yet to be determined what Scott Davenport's life would have looked like. It has yet to be determined what Vincent Cajon's life would have looked like. Fidel Sanchez was minding his business, sitting on a bus, taking a nap, and was cowardly stabbed to death. It was yet to be determined what his life would have looked like. Judy was out taking a walk, minding her business, and she was murdered. My point is this: we need to do a call to action. And here's what I'm saying: if you've lost someone to parolee failure, jail negligence, and DOC silence, reach out to me. We are building a ledger, we're building a platform, and we're done grieving in isolation, because that's what they counted on. They thought I was going to sit here isolated from you by myself. But what I now realize is Jessee had a mother, Scott had a mother, Vincent had a mother. I saw her on Channel 7 News. Fidel Sanchez had a sister. I saw her. Judy Cochran had children, had loved ones. Reach out to me. Reach out to me. Reach out to my DMs, reach out to my email. I'm right here in Aurora, Colorado, and I am not going anywhere until I get answers from my baby who was killed by a parolee that they rated as high risk, yet they did not hold the parolee accountable to the standard that they've already said. There's a higher standard if you're listed as high risk. But they never met with that parolee one time upon the person's release. Never again for the 8 months until my daughter was killed. The call to action is for mothers and loved ones to DM me, call me, email me, text me. We're not just mourning, we're documenting, and we're coming together because DOC, you owe us an answer. The public is not safe with the practices that you are doing with these parolees. If you're going to release them, you need to supervise them. How many more babies need to die?